welcome William Britton to this meeting. William is an adventure enthusiast, a sports person, a business owner, and he runs a business in Sligo called Northwest Adventure Tours. I've done a lot of work with William with the students in the past, doing supping, cycling, different adventure activities, orienteering around Sligo. And from our perspective in IT Sligo, it's amazing to have an outdoor provider who can deliver services to us in the region. So it's quite unique that we can walk from IT Sligo and within 15 minutes we can be on the river supping, we can be cycling. So it's quite unique, and it's an excellent service, and William's going to talk to us about that. So William, I'll just start by can you introduce yourself and maybe your business to us?
Yep. Hi everyone, hope you're doing okay in lockdown. As Kerry said, my name's William Britton. I run a company called Northwest Adventure Tours. We're based out of the Riverside Hotel in the town centre. We've changing rooms and stuff there. Most of our trips go from there, but we operate all over the country. We do on and off road cycling tours, so mountain bike lessons, and then cycling tours for foreigners, Irish, everyone really. Stand-up paddle tours, free diving courses, hiking, trail running, events, stuff with schools, stuff with special needs groups, corporate stuff. Pretty much everything we can get our hands on. Also, I am the chair of Adventure Sligo, which is a kind of a tourism network that works, I suppose, all the different operators in Sligo work together to promote Sligo and kind of get our agendas heard with the council and Fáilte and different things like that. I'm also on the board of Sligo Tourism, which is kind of the next step above that. So we'd be lobbying for infrastructure and I suppose just trying to get tourists to Sligo. Yeah, that's pretty much us.
Okay, and William, can you tell us about how, like, the lead up to you starting the business? What happened to bring this idea into your head? Where were you before the business became a reality?
Yeah, well, if you look behind my head just there, that's my actual degree from the IT when I studied construction. So after I did that, it was kind of boom time where everyone was getting forced into construction with career guidance and stuff. You're either doing a trade or engineering or architecture or something like that. There was no kind of talk of the more fun careers. So I went to Scotland after that and studied quantity surveying. I'd have to say it's not the most exciting. It's good money, but the work kind of dried up, and I decided I wanted to do something more interesting. So I've always mountain biked, racing mountain bikes, road cycling, and just into the outdoors in general. So I started looking into setting up a cycling tour company with mountain biking, and that's how we initially started. We went to the local governing kind of bodies like Sligo Leader and Enterprise Board, and you know they put us on courses for start your own business, told us what funding was available. So we went through those steps, got some funding, got our bikes and got moving. When we started doing tours with the IT and stuff, first it was just we had a handful of bikes and a van, and now we have 40 bikes and 40 sups, and you know so many more activities have come on board since then, and you know, it's just completely changed, I suppose. Every year it's evolved.
Willie, can you tell us a bit about as well, like, were you always involved in sports and adventure, or you know, was that something new for you?
So all my family would be into kind of water sports. My dad would be big into like water safety. He's actually a jeweler by trade, but his kind of hobby, I suppose, would be water sports. So he'd train lifeguards and do swimming courses and things like that. The rest of the family, some are professional surfers. Everyone's involved in the water somehow, but I kind of was the black sheep and went into mountain biking. So I raced from probably when I was 10 up until my 20s, both on the road and off. And then that, I don't know, I thought I could see myself cycling and being in the outdoors forever. We actually said that when we were younger, like it'd be great to be able to do this forever. And now I'm kind of set up to do that. The other two lads that we actually, that I had that conversation with have just set up their own, I've just set up their own mountain bike trail building company. So they were two lads at the same time we raced under 12s together. Kyle Malee and Brian Conlon have now set up Atlantic Single Track. So they're building the trails up here in the new National Trail Centre in Collaney. They just decided, like, one's a tiler and one works in computers. But again, they kind of had enough and are branching out into other things. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Just spent all my time in the outdoors, and now I get to kind of live in the outdoors and make my living from it.
Very good. And just you mentioned Collaney there. I might just divert for a second and ask you to tell us a little bit about that project.
So the aim of Collaney is Quelch have given over land, and it's the community, the county council, the community's Collaney development, and Quelch are working together to build 80 kilometers of mountain bike trails. So everything from full-on extreme stuff, which would be the black trails, jumps and berms and stuff, to kind of more mellow stuff would be the blue trails, where you could go out as a beginner, grab a bike and head off. So I think at the moment, maybe like 20 kilometers are done. So it's enough to kind of keep you entertained. But I think the bigger picture is have people coming from all over Ireland and all over the world, I suppose, to visit the mountain bike centre. And there'll be like a coffee shop there, bike hire, people will be running courses up there. Yeah, so it's going to come in stages, but it's getting there.
Good. William, I'm going to go back again to the business and just, can you tell me about the basic products that your Northwest Adventure Tours offers?
Yep. So as I was saying, we started off with just the cycling, but then I suppose tourism wasn't even as big at that stage. So we were just grabbing everything we could. And if something would come up that they wanted to do water sport and cycling, we'd end up hiring in the person for water sport. So we were basically just splitting the money with them. And eventually, as we made more money, we were able to invest in equipment to broaden our sports. So one would be the mountain biking. That will involve either a tour, from A to B across the mountains if you mountain bike already. Some lads will come, they have all the gear, they just want to know where to go, where others are complete beginners and they just want to learn, how to go off drops, how to do jumps, that kind of thing. Then the cycling tours will be more, you get a lot of kind of the American tourists coming for those. So they'll book them months in advance and they'll want to do, say, a lap of Lough Gill, and they'll stop at the different kind of points of interest. Then we have hiking, and that goes from like simple tours with lots of chat around the coast and Knocknarea, where it wouldn't be that physically demanding, up to like, 2-day hikes with charity challenges where we're taking 50 people off for 2 days, climbing 5 mountains, feeding them, putting them up in accommodation, entertaining them the whole time. Then we'd have the stand-up paddle. That's just basic tours. We'd run straight from town. So you come to the hotel, change, jump on a board, head up the river and onto the lake and back down again. And then the free diving courses. We're actually quite busy with the other stuff. So last season, I don't think we had any courses, but hoping to bring them back this year. But that's basically free diving, is where you hold your breath and swim as deep as you can. So people use it for spearfishing. It's a sport itself. So there's a pool discipline where you'll hold your breath for as long as you can, or try and get the longest distance underwater, or swim down as deep as you can on one breath. But then all of those have had spin-offs. So like the stand-up paddle, we might do a dawn chorus through May when the birds are singing early in the morning. So that'll be an event where people will come out. There might be a bird watching expert there, and you'll paddle, listen to the birds singing at 6 in the morning, or a night paddle, or we've had starbecues where we go hiking and have an astronomy expert. So these quirky ones are kind of fillers, usually in the kind of off season where it's not as busy with international tourism.
So dawn chorus, barbecue, that's really interesting.
Like
so
the sup to, you can bring the students on the sup to sip. So that's beer tasting, craft beer with Lough Gill Brewery. So you go and do your sup to sip, you do your stand-up paddle, come into the hotel, and then one of the barmen will tell you about each of the beers, how they're made, and then you get to sample them.
So you run some really unique events by the sounds of it that you're not going to get elsewhere. They're going to be very unique to your business. Is that a big selling point?
It would be, and I think a lot of Sligo are doing that compared to other places. We're slightly different to the likes of Kerry and stuff, where like tour buses are just coming in, they're churning them through like it's a machine down there. We're here, it's a bit, we have our busy season and then it gets quiet, so you have to get creative. But they end up being the more fun ones for us. A lot of that has happened this summer as well. People want that kind of more unique experience, memorable kind of thing, not just a number. They go off and do something that they really remember.
So a customer could call you up, for example, and say, I would like to do this, and then you could put a package together. Is that
that's what's going on a lot now at the moment. Like in the summer, we had, just one example is 14 friends who hadn't really seen each other in ages, all meeting in Sligo, and they wanted to do something special. I said, well, what do you want to do? Like, and they didn't really know. They said, well, leave it up to you. Like, they kind of knew from word of mouth we did sort of quirky things. So we put them on the river bonnet, paddled down the river, timed it for sunset just as we got onto the lake. So we just rafted all the boards together, chilled out, watched the sunset. And then they didn't know that we had Barry, we had him hike across into a little secret bay. He'd built a bonfire, put the kettle on, we'd s'mores, marshmallows toasted. So they pulled in, they'd no idea it was there. Got to chill out for an hour. Then we put on head torches and paddle back in the dark. And they were like, that's the best thing they've done ever, kind of thing. Like,
I suppose when you live in such a beautiful place like Sligo with all this on your doorstep, you forget that a lot of these experiences are unique to many other people.
Yeah.
And different.
Like, yeah, they'd be happy with just the regular tour, but they asked for something special and they were willing to pay for it. So like, we went paddling with them, ate loads of marshmallows, had like 14 people on it at 40 euros a head, and it was great, like, to get paid to do something like that.
Brilliant. And William, I'm just going to ask you a few of the questions here that are in the chat box. The first one's an easy one from Kyle. He says, how long is your business open?
10 years now in April. Okay.
Yeah. I'm going to get to the next question. What's the best part of working in the adventure tourism industry for you?
I think those ones, like, COVID has nearly reminded us what the fun things were, that you're going out and having fun. Like, when you're really busy, you're stressing and just churning people through. You're kind of thinking more about the money rather than the customer. But COVID has made us do more of these kind of bespoke and unique ones, and back to doing the events. Like finishing that one with the group of friends, like, you're just hanging out with nice people and they're doing something really memorable. And I think that gives you a real buzz. Like, another recent one was a call from a 75-year-old man asking if we do discounts for over 75s. And I was like, I don't even know if we take, over 75s up Ben Bulben. But I agreed to it anyways. Ben Bulben takes 3 to 4 hours. These guys took 7 hours, but it turned out it was 3 brothers whose granddad used to live in the Glenif Horseshoe. It's kind of a remote place up in North Sligo. And they remember coming to Sligo as kids and going on a horse and cart down to Mulletmore Village. No electricity in the house. So there were train drivers from London, all retired. One of the 3 brothers died, and the 2 lads wrote a bucket list. They're really funny. They're like that movie Grumpy Old Men. Wow. And I brought them up. They were pretending to be trapped under rocks and messing the whole way. It took us ages, but so they wrote this bucket list, and Climb Ben Bulben was on it. Like, and we got to the top. The 2 lads were crying. They pulled me into a group hug, wrote a letter for their brother, and buried it in the mud. And after that, they were heading to Costa Rica to go and see a bird they remember seeing on a nature show as a child, called a blue-footed booby. So they were heading off into the jungle to go and see this bird. Like, but just 2 legends, and great crack to hang out with them. It's that stuff you really remember.
That's amazing. I mean, you're not going to get that in many other industries. That's fantastic. You can have those experiences yourself and give them to other people.
Those things just happen here automatically. Like, we had 2 French lads cycling across the county, like a kind of self-guided trip. So their mother rang us. They were 16. And they were cycling from kind of Mayo up as far as Donegal. We'd kind of move their bags for them and assist them if they needed anything with the bikes. But they landed to Aarhus, to the beach bar. They just got delayed. Food had stopped. Your man was like, you can have crisps and snacks. And they were like, Jesus, we've been cycling for like 5 hours today. So a local had heard them and followed them out the door of the pub. The lads going up to set up their tent, and just gave them a big, massive salmon that he caught that day. And the lads were like, oh, thanks very much, but no way to cook it. Like, and then walked back up to the tent, and another guy had heard it, and he was a Michelin star chef on holidays and had a massive school book with a full school bus with a modern kitchen in it. Brought them in, cooked the salmon up for the lads. Like, just weird things like that seem to happen around here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And Oren here is asking, how has your business coped with COVID? But before we get to that question, I'm going to go back a bit and say, where was your business at before COVID?
It was flying it. Like, the first few years we were kind of feeling things out, and I guess I know you were asking me before about tips for people setting up business. Like, having a concrete plan was really important, and we mightn't have had that. We were kind of floating through and doing bits and bobs, and it only really started coming into its own after like kind of 4 to 5 years of hard work. So that just before COVID, we were lining up to have our busiest year yet. Like, we would have been investing in loads more equipment. Bank accounts would have been healthy. And then since COVID, that's kind of gone back down again. But
okay. And what was the majority of your business before COVID? Was it dealing with the international market or the home market?
Kind of have a mix. Summer would be a lot of kind of staycationers and the international market. We'd have set stuff coming every year. There's companies like Wild Women Adventures, who are women only holidays. They might book 20 trips through a whole summer, or the likes of Wilderness Ireland or National Geographic. They'll book the set dates every year, but then you'll have the people that come to us directly as well. So there's kind of international tourism from set tour groups, and then international tourism that are holidaying in Ireland and just grab us on the way through kind of thing. And then we have the domestic, which is the Irish kind of market. They jump on a lot of those unique ones because it might be a set date. If it's a meteor shower hike, it's only on, say, April 10th. You have to be in Sligo for it kind of thing.
And then these rolling, obviously you got hit by the lockdown like everyone else. But how have you dealt with the rolling lockdowns? And the first thing I want to know is, like, when we opened up in the summer, what was that like for you?
Well, as I was saying to you, we had some issues with insurance, so COVID kind of hit every part of the business. But I guess once we had our kind of COVID plans in place with contact tracing and how we were going to do things safely, it was sort of business as usual. There was a lot of people around. Group sizes were down, so that affected a lot of our bigger events. So they'd be like the big earners for us, those charity challenges and corporate events where we're taking, it could be 50 or 100 people over a weekend. Like that could pay you for 3 months kind of thing. They were all gone. Buses could only run at, I think they were at like 25% capacity at one stage. So we were trying to take, if I had to take a group of 30 for you, it might have needed 3 coaches at one stage. And then it went up to 50. So you're constantly adapting. Like, so if it changes, we can go back to the group and say, oh, we can take 50 now. But then at the same time, we put up events and put loads of work into them, fill them, and then they're cancelled at the last minute. And then we have to come up with something else. But I think the fact that we have so many different things with so many different organizations, we had the kind of flexibility to keep going. Like, we were able to open in the second last lockdown with Cycling Ireland stuff with the college, because it's educational, whereas a lot of other people would have had to close their doors.
Okay. And has there been any sort of, that you can see, silver lining to COVID? Let's forget about your business for a second and say to society in general, in a recreation sports point of view.
Yeah, I think like health and fitness was sort of booming anyways, but now like people can't commute, people are locked up, so they're kind of moving to, gyms are closed, they're looking for other ways to kind of get fit and healthy basically. So they all want to get outdoors. So as soon as lockdown lifts, we know we're going to be busy, and I think that's going to continue. Like, I think 40% of people said they're going to continue to diversify their activities, get into new activities, and use the kind of local areas of kind of beauty, forest, sea more often.
Yeah, so it seems that people have become more aware of what's around them and also what they can do in that environment around them.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so from what I've heard, a lot of the businesses who were set up services for online have managed to do quite well with online services. But obviously the majority, your business is a physical product. It's a real product that has to be delivered in person.
Yeah.
So can you give me then, say, how have you been managing? Can you give me an example of a product that you delivered with COVID restrictions in place?
Well, the ones, like I said, we're able to stay open for the school things. So we'll run around and do balance bike programs in different schools, cycling programs in different schools, stuff with yourself, the CTCs. But online, we haven't had anything. It doesn't really kind of suit our stuff to go stand up paddling online. But the likes of Sea Trails might do like talks online and stuff. But it's more just to keep the business ticking over. Sam has done a tour with you before. He's doing a new program called Carving a Story. So he's a wood carver and a Shanachie, which is a storyteller. So he'll carve as he tells you the story. So it might be about Queen Maeve. He'll carve Maeve and tell you the story, and he has them up. And then he has a podcast where you can pay to listen to it. And Wild West Sailing the same. He'll be doing navigation. He's the busiest, I'd say, out of all the providers. Yeah. He's just doing online courses teaching navigation, and then they'll tie in with when he reopens. People can go straight onto the water.
Can you? What's Sam's business called so the students can look it up?
Shanachie Tours. So he'd be going after kind of high-end clients in the States. He'll be bringing them around on a kind of luxury minibus, staying in nice places. They'll kind of go. He has a few different ones. He's one in Scotland as well, but he's originally Shanachie. His dad owns that butcher shop or his uncle, the butcher shop on the end of O'Connell Street. It's called Quirks. If you're ever passing it, you should go in. It used to be a butcher shop, and then he turned it into a wood carving place. So Sam is a qualified Falch Ireland guide, but would have grown up going in there and listened to all his uncle's kind of folklore, and he's kind of combined the two now and set up a business out of it. But even go and look at his videos and stuff, they're really cool. Even his advert video, it's cool stuff. Like, he's like Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's great stuff. And can I ask you then, personally, what part does sort of being active play in your life or your mental health?
Geez, a huge part for me. The lockdowns are tough when you can't get out to the sea, and you know that you only notice it when you can't do it. Like I could do 3 or 4 trips in a day, but still go out and do my own thing after. And I think that's the same with everyone that's in it. They kind of practice what they preach. I think without the outdoor stuff, I'd be lost. That's another thing with before COVID, I would have been in the office a lot. Like, so I'd be getting texts from mates when they see stuff on Instagram of the top of a mountain or out at sea, but I'm actually in an office with no windows under the hotel flat out. Whereas when COVID kicked in, it was kind of all hands on deck. So I was actually out doing tours and remembering what I actually enjoyed about it.
And I heard you talk about Sligo, and people talk about Sligo as an adventure hub. What does that mean?
I think it comes back to your mention of the unique events. Like everyone does adventure, but I think we kind of do it differently here. It's just all around us, and the offering is second to none. People describe Sligo as nearly like a bowl or an amphitheater. So like it's totally surrounded by mountains, and in the middle you have Lough Gill and the sea. And I think more and more people are realizing that. Even people buying property and moving to Sligo, everyone wants to come here for the lifestyle.
Okay, and are we well placed to be an adventure hub?
I think so. That's something we're working on now at the moment. With Falch Ireland and the council is we have like the scenery, like that mountain bike centre is going to be like second to none when it's done. We've world-class surfing, we have everything, but the infrastructure mightn't be there exactly yet. So we're working with the council and Falch on that at the moment. There's huge investment coming towards that. So if we launch on the River Bonnet, we're launching on a grass bank. And if you're bringing millionaires there to do us up, it's not great if you're marching around in mud kind of thing. So we're identifying places for like jetties and slipways to make things easier. Dorley Park was mentioned. Like there's 2 containers there. Like it's not the way it should be. You know, there should be a big centre there with a meeting room, plenty of place. There's 4 sub-schools using there, a kayak club, a rowing club, the public. Same with Strand Hill, it's wedged. So they're looking at the surf centre, proper parking for surf schools. Darrell Ewan from Sligo Boat Charters is trying to get a marina built in Ross's Point where they can have luxury yachts come in, not just kind of small boats. It'll be a different market again. But yeah, I think it's just the infrastructure needs to be worked on. If you go up Ben Bulbin, there's a lay-by at Luke's Bridge. I'm sure you've been up there. And during the summer, it was just crazy. So we used to pick different routes just to avoid it. Like you're driving the farmers mad. People are getting stuck in ditches. So it's kind of working on all these. So there's car parking, toilet facilities, bins, like it would be anywhere else in Europe.
So you need the facilities, and then if you have the facilities, it ends up being a sustainable industry.
Yeah, COVID kind of highlighted that for everyone, and that's why they're kind of making a move to try and sort things out now, because just the crowds,
And William, can you tell us about the growth in adventure races like Tough Mudder? Do you have any involvement with these, and can you tell us a bit about these?
Not really, but I suppose some of our charity challenges could be the same. Like since last year, all the charities would be down money. So they can't run any of their events. So they've all come back to us now. All the big names like Bernardo's, Epilepsy Ireland, Focus, Special Olympics, they all want to go back to this challenge kind of thing rather than online. I guess they need to get their figures up. But that would be ran like an adventure race. You might do a stand-up paddle and a hike across a mountain or something, and everyone gets a medal, raises their money, that kind of thing. But the actual adventure races are ran usually by companies or communities, so we wouldn't have much involvement in them.
Could you give us an example of a adventure race that's kind of popular at the moment?
One we were looking at was trail running and sailing one down around the south coast, where you will sail from place to place and do running races. But the main ones, I suppose, will be Gale Force and all those kind of ones. So they're probably getting 500 people into a race at €100 a pop. And all they're doing is kind of, I suppose, if to do a lot of promotion, there is loads of work in it. But adventure racing on its own can be a money-making thing. The trail running is blown up, and the ultra marathons, that kind of thing. They're making huge money, like just running those events. Like
that brings me nicely on to the next thing I want to discuss with you, and that's the change that you've seen in sports, adventure tourism, adventure sports. in that people are getting more serious about these activities. I see people like who aren't professional, but yet they're buying €5,000 bikes. So there's a growth in this concept called serious leisure. Have you noticed that?
Definitely. But like, I never really put a term on it originally, and I know we spoke about it before, but I would say that pretty much everybody that's working in the industry in Sligo now has come through that serious leisure sort of phase. So say after the recession and the likes, people would have been like, I did quantity surveying. Barry that works for me was a plumber. John from Wild West was working in security. Like, it was all those kind of jobs that sort of dried up or became stressful and people left them. But these guys would have been doing whenever they had time, I suppose, would have been doing their pastime. So John, for example, kayaking, I would have been biking. But then we kind of slowly realized that there could be money to be made from doing what you love. Like same with the Atlantic Trail guys, they're going around on bikes worth $5,000 and their vans could be worth €500 kind of thing.
Yeah.
But so people would have seen it. I don't know, it's very hard to explain it. Like, I suppose
people are investing a massive amount, both personally and financially, into their pastimes.
They invest everything in it. So like everything they post on social media, everything they read, everything they do is upskilling, and it's just for themselves really. And then that just transferred straight over into business. And I think that's what's worrying with COVID, is if any of these businesses go to the wall, or even the whole tourism industry would go to the wall. Now, luckily enough, we're getting supported well. It would be very hard to replace that workforce, because people are dedicating their lives to a sport like a professional athlete, and then passing their knowledge and skills onto the customer.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And it seems that for a lot of people, then that serious leisure component becomes a big part of their identity. So they're looking for then products and services that support that identity.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Like people are practicing I don't know if you've heard of that term, the busman's holiday. Like if you know, Barry Mottershead is a surfer and a kayaker, but when he's not doing that, he's surfing and kayaking. Like, you know, people do it in their time off as well.
That's interesting, because it's such a big part of who they are.
Yeah.
Just going to go to another question here, and this is a question in relation to COVID, asking, do you think that COVID is going to negatively affect business going into the future?
I think we're going to have another few months of kind of bits and bobs changing that we'll have to adapt, which we're kind of used to at this stage. But after that, I think that the amount of people that realize what's on their doorstep, and kind of, I don't know, they're more into memories and kind of spending their time well rather than material things. So I think in the long run, it's going to be positive, but I'd say we'll have another kind of semi-short season this season, and then we'll truck on after that.
So is it quite important at the moment to keep your profile out there?
Yeah, well, I haven't been great at that, but yeah, social media will be important. I'm kind of just ramping it up now that the end is sort of in sight, and working with Adventure Sligo and Sligo Tourism to kind of target what's going to be coming down the line first. So apparently high-end clients are going to be some of the first coming, like those Americans and stuff are going to be the first to travel, staying in all the nice castles and that kind of thing. And also the older age group. So we're doing blogs at the moment on like silver surfers and trying to sell the soft adventure side of our product, you know, like supping or rock climbing isn't just for, you know, young ones. Anybody of any age can do pretty much all the activities in Sligo.
And Oren's asking a question here. He's asking, you know, are there other sports that you want to incorporate into your business in the future?
Yeah, as I said, like when we have something else, if it's like a camp, like we do special needs camps and stuff, and if the client wants surfing on it, we know that everyone in our venture network is, you know, fully qualified, fully insured. So I just have to pick up the phone and grab them. But yeah, I think down the line we'll probably have a few more activities, but just not exactly sure which ones yet.
Okay. And about how your business is developing, are there few, like if you look 5 years, 10 years down the line, where do you see it?
It's hard to know. Kind of everything blocked that with that COVID, with the future vision. But ideally, I'd like a kind of a center, a one-stop shop. At the moment, we're kind of a bit all over the place with our tours. So we have our base in town, but as I mentioned, with the infrastructure and stuff, we still can't fully launch right at the hotel. You know, we might have to go up to Dorley or move elsewhere. If everything was in one place, we'd be getting the benefit of selling accommodation, having all the activities there. It would reduce times of getting set up, and it would just make things run a lot smoother. But some of these ideas were in the pipeline before the first lockdown, but I couldn't really risk spending any money or investing or doing anything risky. Just it was more survival mode for a while.
Here's a question for you. So when you're in good times, let's say, what is it you look for in staff?
I guess those guys that are into it, nearly like the serious leisure guys, the guys that nearly, it's like you're hiring a professional athlete, but it's one of the lads, you know. They have it all. They kind of have fun, kind of banter. They're highly skilled and qualified. They know their thing inside out. I don't know if the group has met the likes of Barry, but that guy like lives and breathes mountains. Like he's just obsessed. If you see him on a tour, he's nearly foaming at the mouth with information, getting it out, and people just love it. Like,
that's right.
And then with different people for different jobs. Like if you look at the likes of our SUP instructor Jack, like he's a real young surfer dude, and the kind of younger people would gel to him more, whereas older people into like the history of the area and stuff would be more into Barry. So you pick the guide for the job, kind of thing.
It sounds like being a people person is important.
It would be, yeah. You can't be going out like a big. I've seen guides that go out grumpy, like I know grumpy guides, and it's just they'll get one of those groups like kids or something, and they don't know how to handle them, and it just doesn't go well. You need to be able to adapt to each one.
Yeah, and somebody's asking here, do you work with school groups? How do you find that?
Yeah, so we do everything from like gasket trips where we'll be bringing them away camping. We've done like cross-border camps where we've had 60 kids for 2 weeks on residential camps, which is just, it's tiring, but it's good crack. And we'll do cycling courses in schools. We'll do hiking trips with the schools, like everything from preschool. Like we'll do, 3-year-olds on balance bikes and give them like a cycling lessons on the balance bikes so they're ready to go straight to proper bikes from stabilizers. And we'll train up the preschool teachers so they can continue it on when we leave. Primary schools, secondary schools, colleges, the likes of the youth reaches. Because we've so many things we can, offer whatever we want.
And if you have to choose a market group to work with, is it that kind of, let's say, more luxury end of the market, or is it the end of the market in schools? Which is it? Or do they both offer something that you enjoy?
Both, I think, offer something I enjoy. The kids are always great crack, but I enjoy the high end stuff as well. Like, I don't know, maybe we should be more focused on one activity, but at the moment it seems to be working with taking it all kind of fills up your days. Like the high end ones, I mentioned National Geographic. I ran them with Sam from Shanachie Tours, and they're paying like $6,000 for the week hanging around kind of Sligo, Galway, Mayo, Donegal, but they're staying in like castles. They're like, they could ask you at the drop of a hat. Sam had a group 2 years ago and they were going on a boat to the Skelligs, and the guy was like a millionaire. He was like, I don't want to go on the boat, get me a helicopter. Sam had to pick up the phone, get a helicopter, fly around the Skelligs. The next night, it was his night off, and they said, do you want to come for dinner? And you don't have to, because you kind of sometimes want a break from the client. You're with them from like 7 a.m. till 10 at night. And as he was getting dropped off to the accommodation, they said, bring your passport. They went for dinner in Copenhagen for the night, flew from Dublin. He said he got in some private way into the airport, took him off to some fancy restaurant and back. But those ones, like you're kind of getting part of the experience as well. You're staying in these nice places and doing the activities. You still have to look after them and entertain them and give them the information, but they're enjoyable.
Would you recommend guiding as a career?
It depends on your people skills as well. Like it can be tiring. Like imagine being with a group of Americans from 7 a.m. till 10 at night. You eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. Like it can be, I don't know why. Like it's not physical, but it's just tiring, entertaining people and chatting to them. But definitely, it's really good money, and you get to see really cool places. So I would recommend it.
A guide I know said it's because you're always on.
Yes.
You might be enjoying yourself, but you're always on, in other words, you're
definitely.
always working really, and conscious of everyone.
But there's so many different types of it as well. There's more chill stuff around cities, or there's, the adventure guide where you're taking people up mountains and you have to kind of really look after their well-being. The kind of high-end ones we do, we'll go and meet a provider so we know that we're safe. And we're just kind of looking after their personal needs during that trip. Like.
And can I ask you about some of the groups you might link in with, like Wilderness Ireland? Who are they, and do you connect with them?
So it's Wilderness Ireland's the sister company of Wilderness Scotland. So they're a really successful tour company from Scotland. They basically just had everything nailed down and did a direct replica of their Scottish company and set up here in Collaney and Sligo. So they'll have a team of people that run all the logistics. You know, they'll book the sandwiches, they'll book the boats. They're always on call. Like if a storm comes and we're due to go stay in an island, we can pick up the phone and go like, this boat isn't running, and they'll have to get on the phone.
I just going to go back a step. What do they do, Wilderness Ireland?
So they will, same as I was saying, where we get tourists coming directly to us and then tourists coming through companies. So say like the likes of National Geographic could ring Wilderness and say, look, you need to put together a package. And they'll ring me and say, can you put together some cool places and an itinerary? They'll pay me for that. And then they'll send it back. National Geographic will sell it on their website. The Wilderness will take a cut and then they'll pay me to do it. Or they'll set up their own trip, a Wilderness Ireland one. It could be, 7 days in the West. Pay me to guide it, but I'll be wearing their uniform kind of thing. So they're basically an inbound tour operator.
So having these links in the industry sounds really important.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. But that's just one example. Wilderness, there's piles of them. There's the vagabonds, but majority of them will be, the money's in getting the customer to come right to you, not through a second group, because they're taking a cut of the money. Of course. But it's harder to get to. Like that's what Tourism Ireland will be focusing on at the moment, is the international market. The domestic market keeps things ticking over for the likes of us, but it's limited in its size. Whereas if we become a destination that's really sought after internationally, the place could be wedged.
And William, it sounds like setting up your business was a big lifestyle choice for you. Obviously, you made sacrifices to set up your own business and to live in the place you want, doing the activities you enjoy. So can I go and talk about some of the challenges? What are some of the challenges of running your own business?
Same as those American tours. You're never switched off. And then I guess staff is important too, like Jack and Barry, like all through this, you have to make sure, they have families and bills and mortgages and kids. You have to make sure they're getting paid as well. I suppose everyone comes up with its own sort of unique challenge. Like the charity ones, 50 people up a mountain and it's getting dark. That's one stress, But you're everything. You're marketing, your accounts, you're meeting the groups, you're sometimes guiding the groups. Now that we've kind of ironed out a lot of the annoying stuff, so at the moment it's just juggling, I suppose. Losing in the summer as well, it was lots of ones and twos. We're used to kind of the big groups coming to us booked in advance, so we had to switch over to like grabbing ones and twos and putting them together. So we were running like a lot more small groups. It was partly to do with the restrictions as well, the size of the groups allowed to meet. We had to do way more small groups to get the same money we would from one big group kind of thing. So that was also kind of tricky. Guides is another one. Like qualified guides are people are working on at the moment, but they're hard to come by. Like it was people nearly fighting over guides for surfing and SUP last year. Everyone wanted them because they were so busy. Yes. And can you tell us, like, what's the vision for Sligo? From your knowledge, what's the vision for Sligo going into the future to develop as an adventure hub? I think it's going to be, as Kerry, like you can probably say, it's saturated on the Ring of Kerry and stuff in the summer. So it's already started that we get the spillover. With these high-end groups, they love the likes of walking up Benbulben and not seeing anyone. If you go up Benbulben in September, the chances of meeting anyone are slim. People like that kind of off the beaten track experience. Everywhere's kind of not saturated yet, like the surf or the waterways and that kind of crack. But down the line, I think it's going to be another Kerry, but when that happens, I don't know. I think that's why they're trying to be cautious as well, that we don't ruin the place, that it's the infrastructure is there before we get everyone to come. And William, from setting up your own business, what tips would you give to anyone else who was at the moment thinking about setting up a business? I actually wrote these down because I knew I'd be waffling. It takes a lot of time and effort. As I said, we were kind of 4 years in of messing and not really knowing what was going on. I don't think we really kind of bashed out a proper plan. So having a good plan and a solid foundation, I think going from there is probably the first step. And then what worked well for us was we were probably charging too little at the start and going above and beyond. So looking after the customer, like chasing the customer rather than the money at the start. If you have a good product, the money's always going to come. But we've like set up relationships at the start, like the Special Olympics one. The first time I met their main marketing guy, he was coming on holidays to Sligo, and I was like telling him all the places. He asked me to fire him in an email, so I did up an itinerary for his family's summer holiday in Sligo. I'm sure they did everything on it. We're blown away, and like 10 years later now, we've got a crazy amount of money out of it and an ongoing annual event. I think it's just really looking after the client is the main thing. Flexibility is another one, as the last year has kind of shown that if you can adapt to the different things and, you know, expand when you need to expand. Some things will work, some things won't. You know, we've tried bike hire in places and it ends up just being a mess and a pain for the amount of money. And that's fair enough. It doesn't work. It's not the right time for it, or, you know, you adapt it and do it somewhere else. What else would there be now? 1 second. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The attitude, it all depends on the person as well. If you're kind of negative and down and something goes wrong, you're just gonna, you know, you're gonna find an excuse. Whereas if you're positive, you're gonna kind of get around it. Like there's been loads of things like that, and if you've got the right attitude, you get through it.
And in terms of learning, what kind of learning should these students start to get involved in?
If you're looking to get into the kind of adventure side of things, and you're living in Sligo, I'd recommend going out and trying everything. On our website, Adventure Sligo, you'll find all the providers. Go out and sample everything there is to offer, see what you're into. There's also Sligo walks, they're free. Go and explore the county. Brendan Kenny is the head of the Irish Adventure Tourism Association. He went to the IT as well. He's the CEO of it now. But he said when he was here, all he did was go to the Leitrim Bar, and that was it. And then after he was in Sligo, he got into the adventure side of things, and now he's the head of the biggest adventurous organization in the country. The other one is I link up with the likes of Sports Partnership or any of the clubs during the college. They'll all be doing things that are free or cheap. Get out and kind of enjoy it, I suppose. Maybe do work experience with some of the groups. Yeah.
Okay, that's really solid advice there, William. And I got Patrick Kelly here asking, would you recommend any cycling trails for beginners around Sligo?
Geez, depends on the person. If you're just looking for a spin and you're in town, I'd just go for a cycle up around Orley. But I don't know if I should advise to go straight out to the likes of Union Woods. I'd probably, it's like surfing, I suppose. You wouldn't recommend someone go straight out to a load of big waves and then get sucked out to sea. If you want to get into mountain biking, you'd probably give us or the club a shout. The club will be free. You sign up for a small amount and you'll have insurance. So that means you're allowed to go to Union Wood, which has amazing trails, or the likes of Collaney. And if you fall, you're insured. But they'd have days where the lads will take beginners out. So, you know, they show you the trails. If you're making any mistakes, they'll give you tips for free. I think there's like 40 or 50 in the club now, so they've regular enough spins. But yeah, if you're going into the mountain bike side of things, I'd probably jump in with the club or go on a lesson. And
William, here's a question from Lee. He's asking, how did your time in Scotland affect how you thought about your future?
Jesus, in Scotland there was loads of partying.
Okay.
I was studying construction over there, and if anything, it brought me away from adventure. Like we had a couple of surf trips over on the west coast and a tiny bit of snowboarding and stuff, but being in the city kind of made me miss sort of Sligo, where I can walk out the door and be at a mountain or a wave, you know, in 10 minutes kind of thing. So like it was good, the quantity surveying, but it just wasn't for me. Neither was city living. Like it's nice to go and visit, but Sligo's a pretty amazing place.
So it sounds like it had a big influence, really. It made you realize what you didn't want.
Yeah. Well, I came back and worked at it, and it was good money, but Jesus, like I think at the time, at the that sort of time in the boom, there was a shortage of librarians and quantity surveyors. So like that's kind of where it was going. It's kind of it was dull. Like, you know, with this you can be creative and, you know, it's rewarding. Like the free diving, you're giving someone nearly, as I describe, as a superpower. If people come and they can only hold their breath for 10 seconds and they leave with a 4-minute breath hold, lying on the bottom of the ocean with no tanks, with no kind of urge to come to the surface. It's a lot more kind of rewarding than the other stuff.
And William, on a personal note, you've been involved in like a lot of different adventures. You talked about the Busman's holiday. Can you tell us about one or two of those that you've done?
I'm trying to think. The last two were kind of tame enough. Was just a surf trip to Portugal, and then before that was a climbing trip in Spain. Got into some kind of hairy situations, but just good crack, climbed all day, surfed all day. But the last big one was I went to the Golden Eagle Festival in Mongolia. That was like 3 years ago. So we had to take a rickety old warplane into the middle of the Altai Mountains, and then take jeeps and hike up to the Altai Plains, where the Mongolians have basically their Olympics every year. They'll all the tribes, the nomads, will come from hundreds of miles all over Kazakhstan and Mongolia to compete in the Eagle Games. So they'll one will climb to the top of the mountain, and the other one will drag a dead animal behind the horse, and they have, you know, the eagle will have to come down and get it, or they have like tug of war with a dead animal. All these weird games. There was one where the wives of the men were chasing them around, whipping them. I don't know what that was about. But that was just a hairy spot. There was lads walking around with Kalashnikovs. Someone lost the tug of war with the dead goat. It'd be tribes kind of going against each other, and most of them are Muslim. They wouldn't bet or anything like that. But one guy got disqualified, and a full-scale riot broke out. There was gunshots, rocks being thrown at the judges, and we had to fully leg it out of there. Like, then our plane broke. We got stuck there. It was -15 at night. I was going to the toilet out a flap in the tent, like it was just freezing. Hadn't washed in like 10 days. And eventually we got back. I booked straight into a hotel in the capital, like, but just good crack, like.
Sounds like a real adventure. One you're glad you survived.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so finally, William, then I just I'm going to wind it up. We've been talking to you now for nearly an hour, which is great. But I just want to ask you tips for getting through COVID. Would you have any tips for lockdown? The students are on lockdown at home. I suppose it's not where they want to be. Would you have any tips?
Well, there's quite a bit online regarding fitness. If you're just into basic fitness, I'm sure you, as students of the course, you'll have bits already. But I find getting out, and if there's any water near you, if you can kind of do it safely, whether it's go for a swim or a sup or anything, find the water really helps. But any sort of exercise, even going out and blasting a trail, like running on the road can be grand, but if you're living near to the IT, you might get out around Hazelwood. Just get out into nature is kind of what I've been doing. I also took up drawing, which kind of stops me watching too much Netflix. So you're kind of getting the brain going and the body going.
So it's a good time to stay active and maybe take up something new. That seems to be.
I know a lot of people are upskilling as well with the season ahead. Now, I haven't signed up for any courses, but people are kind of studying and kind of trying to improve their information side of things for guiding, you know, like history and folklore and that kind of thing.
Yeah, very good, William. And is there anything you'd like to finish on before we say goodbye?
No, not really. These are all first years, are they?
They are, yeah.
Yeah, so we'll probably see them soon enough. If any of them have any questions about places to visit or anything like that, they can drop me an email. We'll also have our new website done, I think, by the end of this week, and there'll be a calendar of events. But if you just tell us you're one of Kerry's students, we'll sort you out. You can probably jump onto a few tours or whatever.
Yeah. So we're hoping that if the regulations allow, that we'll be back doing outdoor activity, but at the moment we're not certain.
Yeah.
William, really appreciate you giving us your time and your energy and your positivity. I think the students have learned a lot about the industry. We covered a lot of topics. Thanks very much. Yeah. And I'll see you soon. And the students hopefully will see you soon too. Thanks again. I'll let you sign out now, and I'm going to continue on here.
Cheers, guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Thanks, William.
Bye-bye.